Guys, please check your audio and video settings, please. Yes, boss. In yesterday's class, I was talking about high-level architecture of Hibernate. So there will be one DAO class where we write the persistence logic that will use JPA API support or Hibernate API support to talk with Hibernate. Hibernate internally uses JDBC and it will talk with what? Database software. If someone says JDBC is outdated, show this diagram, which is official diagram given by Hibernate people. Okay, now? Right. Why Hibernate is named as Hibernate? Yesterday we discussed this also. Okay. So the process of making objects representing DB table records, keeping those objects in caches, using them again and again, okay, is looking like hibernation process of ice bear animal. Hibernation process of ice bear animal. Hibernation process of Kumbhakarna, right? Okay. So these Kumbhakarna and ice bear, polar bear animal, what they will do? They will eat for 6 months and they will store everything in the body and they will try to reuse in the next 6 months. And hibernate behavior is also bit similar to that. Hibernate programming is also showing bit amount of hibernation. So that's why they named it as what? Hibernate. So we are going to have two types of configurations in Hibernate. What do you mean by two types of configuration? I'm talking about giving instructions to Hibernate. It can be given to through XML or through annotations. Through XML or through annotation. Old used only in maintenance projects. Annotation latest used in all projects. In some of the old maintenance projects also annotations are there. Are you understanding my point there? Fine, boss. So then we have discussed about components in Hibernate programming while working with XML driven configuration. So then I have done everything. There will be one entity class acting as a Java bean. There will be Hibernate configuration class file. There will be what? Hibernate mapping file. So what actually happens? A activate Hibernate framework. By creating object for one or other Hibernate supplied class, you activate Hibernate framework. B. The activated framework takes Hibernate environment files as inputs and somehow develops what? Objects based OR mapping persistence logic. That is C. That is C. In this process, definitely Hibernate API will be used. This object based Hibernate OR mapping persistence logic internally generates JDBC code and that code will send and execute relevant SQL queries in database software. This database software will manipulate the data, will definitely manipulate the data. Whatever output comes, that output will go to browser as a response. Whatever output comes, that output goes to browser as a response. Sir, what is need of this file, sir? What is need of this file? Array, this war mapping persistence logic should make underlying JDBC to locate and establish connection with a certain database software. For that one, it has to use some JDBC driver. It has to use some JDBC driver. Those driver details will be there in the configuration file. Listen here. Hibernate is having capability of generating tables dynamically. Hibernate is having capability of what? Generating tables dynamically. And whenever we try to do object-based persistence operation, it internally uses JDBC code for SQL query to complete that persistence operation. Yes or no? Na? Hibernate is having so many features. caching, versioning, and number of features are there. And we have to give instructions for those things also. Okay. So okay. But whenever query generation part is the responsibility of the dialect in Hibernate. Query generation part, maybe query generation for table creation, query generation for persistence operation, or maybe query generation for what? Other activities. Okay. That is that is the work of dialect. But that dialect is not fixed here. It will change database to database. So which dialect we should use? Hibernate should use which dialect for which database? We also should specify here. We also should specify here. But luckily, if you don't specify also, no problem. They will be picked up automatically. They will be picked up automatically based on the JDBC driver details we give. Based on the JDBC driver details we give. Come on. Right. Next, any file name .xml can be taken as Hibernate configuration file. But if no file name is given, then Hibernate framework looks for hibernate.cfg.xml of class path or build path as what? Hibernate configuration file. As a default Hibernate configuration file. Right. Okay, now listen. This file contain information about how Hibernate framework should locate and establish connection with the database software. Whatever information is required for that, it will provide that information. Generally, JDBC driver details we provide here. Are you understanding my point there? Right. Next one. We also specify dialect to tell to Hibernate, okay, generate SQL queries by using so and so dialect. But this dialect will value will change based on the database software and its version we use. Based on the database, but luckily it's optional to specify dialect. It will be picked up automatically. It will be picked up automatically based on the JDBC driver details we specify. Right. Sir, dialect is a component in Hibernate that is capable of generating necessary SQL queries. Guys, what's happening, guys? You are not listening. Dialect is an internal component of Hibernate that is capable of generating necessary SQL queries. Necessary SQL queries. Whatever, wherever. Okay? Wherever, whenever Hibernate has to generate SQL queries, okay, it is the responsibility of the dialect. Don't worry much about a new terminology. Okay, fine. See, Hibernate has to generate lot of SQL queries, maybe for table creation, maybe for persistence operation, maybe for some other purpose. But whenever query generation requirement is there, Hibernate internally handovers that responsibility to dialect. If you specify, fine. If you don't specify, no problem. Hibernate is intelligent enough to pick up that one automatically based on the database details and JDBC driver details that you specify. Based on the database or JDBC driver detail that you specify. Come on. Right. Hmm. And using this file, we can also give common instruction to Hibernate, like enable auto commit, enable cache, enable SQL query to show, format SQL query, this kind of common. So that's why generally Hibernate configuration file contains three important details. JDBC properties like JDBC driver details, mandatory. Hibernate properties like dialect info, show SQL, format SQL, auto generation of DDL. Okay, many things are there. These are purely optional. If you specify, fine. If you don't specify, no problem. Hibernate mapping file names. You have to mention name of the Hibernate mapping files. You can give this information either through properties file or XML file. But giving through property file is old style, and giving to XML file is what? Latest. Giving through as XML file is latest. Okay, now, right. So how to provide this entire information as a key value pairs? Keys are fixed, values will be changed based on the database software and its version. Based on the database software and its version. For example, you take key for dialect is this Hibernate.dialect. Hibernate.dialect. Okay, fixed. But value, dialect is a class name internally. Dialect is a class name. Dialect component is a class name internally. Come on. 8i separate class, 9i separate class, 10g separate class. So this will generate SQL queries according to 8i version. This will generate dialect according to what? 9i version. This will generate according to what? 10g version. What about 11g, 12c? 12c, sir. For 12c separate dialect is there. For 11g also we can use 10g. For 11g also we have to use 10g. Are you understanding my point there? Fine. So we don't mention all the three at a time. We mention only one at a time. Okay, only for knowledge sake, I have shown like this. Only for knowledge sake, we have shown. And we are mentioning some driver details also. Did you notice that? Okay. Please, keys are fixed. That's why there is no question of having duplicates. Keys are given by Hibernate. Only values you have to give. When keys are predefined, how the question of duplicates? Use some common sense. When keys are predefined, keys are fixed, keys are given by Hibernate. Why Hibernate people will give duplicate keys? Use some brain, ra Bobo. Values will be changed based on the database software and its version we use. See the point here. Keys are fixed and values will be changed based on JDBC, based on database software, JDBC driver, and Hibernate software names and versions we are using. Time to time values will change. These are the keys, these are the values. Values will change, that one. So you need not to mug up the keys here. There is a hibernate.properties file in etc folder. From there you can get it. Okay, now listen, most important. We take Hibernate configuration file on one per database software basis. Suppose if your Hibernate persistence logic wants to talk with one database software at a time, one configuration file is sufficient. If Hibernate persistence logic wants to talk with what? Two database softwares at a time. How many? Two database softwares at a time. Then you have to take what? Two configuration file. How many? Two Hibernate configuration file. How many? Two Hibernate configuration file. Right. If you want to talk with 10 database software, then you have to take 10 configuration files. Everyone getting my point there or not there? Okay. At the end, again, I highlighted what is dialect. Dialect is an internal component of Hibernate. Hibernate that is responsible to generate all types of SQL queries that are required for application. That makes Hibernate to generate all types of SQL queries. All types of what? SQL queries. Now onwards, remember, SQL query generated means, okay, that is the work of dialect. See, boss, in your home, food is prepared means that's the work of mother. Work of the mother. In a hotel, food is ready means that's the work of chef. Understanding my point there? In India, some bomb attack happened means that's the work of terrorist. In JDBC, we write, okay, in JDBC, we write the SQL queries. In Hibernate, they will be generated. So Hibernate generating means internally it has to use one or other service support, and that service support is nothing but dialect. That service support is nothing but dialect. Are you getting my point there or not there? That service support is nothing but a dialect. Okay, boss. Fine. So, shall we go to mapping file now? But before going to mapping file, let me talk about entity class. Let me go for entity class. Our next one is what? Entity class. Entity class. Okay, otherwise, 1 minute. Okay, don't try to understand total technicality. I will try to show how does a typical configuration file looks. I try to show how does a typical configuration file looks. Okay, what I'm opening, don't worry, I'm opening some of my previous batch codes. So many projects will come, Rab. Okay, don't worry. Yes. Yeah, what these, what location, don't worry, just see the file. Hibernate.cfz.xml. See this? Property name, value. 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 Like this it looks. In XML file only, we will try to supply as property names and values. Property name as the name attribute value of property tag, value as the body of the property tag, value as the body of the property tag. I hope you are getting my point. Yes. Yes. What are the root tag? What is this stuff? Don't worry. Okay. So in hibernate.cfz.xml, we provide like this. In hibernate.cfz.xml, we generally provide like this. We generally provide like this. Fine. Fine. So right now there is no option alternate of replacing this XML file with Java class. It should be XML. You cannot say XML outdated. It should be XML, must be XML. Is that clear? Right. Key value. Key value. Key value. Maybe at the top I have given only keys and values for understanding purpose. But actually they will be arranged like this. They will be arranged like this. Okay, some other decorations will be there, don't worry. What about name of the mapping files are? Mapping file names will be given like this. Mapping file names will be given like this. At the end, name of the mapping file will be given. Employee.hbm.xml. HBM means Hibernate mapping file. I will explain, don't worry. Hibernate mapping file name. Okay. Mapping file name is compulsory. One or other mapping file name is required. Especially when you are working with XML driven configuration, mapping file name is compulsory. Okay. Right. Please don't get into too many details. Don't get into too many details. Keys are same for all database software, but values will change based on the database software and its version we use. Keys are same for all database software, fixed. They are fixed. They are fixed for all database softwares. Right. Shall we get into the next discussion, boss? What's our next discussion? Entity class. Okay. Are I will show up, Babu. Mister, you should have a patience, Ra. Mister, you should have a patience. If you don't have patience, nothing will work out here. I will launch one by one. Who is this guy? Sayan Ghosh. Okay, there is a order of learning. There is a order of learning. Okay, and you have to respect that. Fine, boss. Entity class, also called as model class, also called as persistence class, also called as domain class. So many names are there, boss. Okay, so many names are there. Yeah, listen, the people who just joined today, yesterday, don't worry. All these classes are there in the live YouTube channel of Naresh IT. Go and watch. Go and watch. Okay, what is that? What is that? I will tell. youtube.com/nareshit, youtube.com/nareshit. Right, see, today live is happening, this session is there. Okay, right. So home, if you go to home page, yes, these many classes are happening live, these many classes are happening live. Did you notice that? Fine. So if you scroll bit, you will get all old videos. If you scroll bit, you will get all old videos. In the home page itself, you can see that. Otherwise, okay. Hibernate Natrasar. Hibernate Natrasar. See this? Session 1, session 2. Okay. Like this, you will get all the sessions, boss. All the session. Go by this color. You can watch, I think, nearly 5, 6 this one, parrot green color poster. Watch all the things that are there in parrot green color poster. I think 8, 9 sessions are there. Go through it. But still coding is not started. I'm preparing background for launching coding. I'm preparing background for launching coding. Come on. So that's why you can still continue in this batch, but urgently watch those videos. Very, very informative videos. Okay. Right. Entity class. This one. Listen, boss. It is a Java bean. Java bean class. Basically, it's a Java bean class. Okay. That holds persistable data. That hold persistable data. Persistable means to be inserted. To be inserted. Come on. To be inserted. Or persistent data. What data? Persistent data. Okay. Persistent data. Collected from collected from uh, collected from database. To be inserted to database or collected from database. Tell me here, at the time of insertion, this class object holds what? This class object holds what? To be inserted data. At the time of retrieving, this class object holds what? Already available data from database. Persistable means to be inserted. Persistent means already it is there in the database, collected and stored into the object. Collected and stored into the object. Are you getting my point there? At the time of insertion operation, to be inserted data it will hold. At the time of retrieving already saved data it will hold. Come on, guys. It is a Java class. It is a Java bean class whose object holds. It is a Java bean class whose objects holds persistible data to be inserted to database or persistent data collected from database. Okay. It will be taken, on 1 per DB table basis. It will be taken on 1 per DB table basis. It will be taken on 1 per DB table basis. Got the point there or not there? 10 tables are there. 10 entity classes will be taken. 20 tables are there. 20 entity classes will be taken. Are you understanding my point there? Fine. Got it or not there? Array, don't confuse about persistence means already it is there in the database. We are collecting and storing into object. That data is called persistent. Persistible means now it is there in object only, but later it is going to become going to be inserted in the table. Later it will be inserted in the table as a record. Come on, come on. It will be taken on 1 per database table basis. Next. While writing objects based OR mapping persistence logic. What logic? OR mapping persistence logic. We use this class objects to represent DB table records and to perform persistence operations. To represent DB table records and to perform persistence operations. Are you getting my point there or not there? So entire persistence operation will happen based on this. Come on, right? So these are non-invasive classes. What classes here? Non-invasive classes. That means non-invasive classes. That means these classes need not to implement or extend from Hibernate API interfaces or classes. Okay, that means they can be moved to another framework whenever we want or not there. That means they can be moved to another framework whenever we want or not there. Yes or no? Yes. We can design these classes. Using all Java OOP features like inheritance, composition, polymorphism, and etc. We can enjoy all features of polymorphism, encapsulation. Okay, all main features of Java can be used here. No restriction, nothing. Okay, boss. Listen. Yes. Suppose I have DB table in Oracle. Fine. I have a table like employee. Here we are having columns. EID, E-name, tell me, e-salary, e-salary, and e-address. E-address, come on. Paintbrush takkada, paintbrush takkada. Okay, those are having small issues, audio, video, screen issues. Do one thing, leave the meeting once, rejoin. That's the only solution that will work. 10-15 seconds means bear it. Automatically problem is solved. But if it is still continuing further, leave the meeting once, rejoin once. That's it. Yes. It's a number type. It's a varchar2 type. It's a salary float type or number type. Address is what? Varchar2 type. Varchar2 type. Now tell me, how does it looks? Public class employee. Public class employee. Public class employee. Got it or not? This is my entity class. Implements. Implements. Serializable. Serializable. Implements serializable. Listen, it's a recommendation only, not mandatory. Recommended to implement. Sir, why should I do, sir? To make object of this entity class as serializable object. So that I can see object of this class, object data of this class can be sent to over the network, can be written to file, can be written to file. Are you understanding my point there? Okay, it's a recommended, optional but recommended, purely optional but recommended. Okay, anyhow, discussion has come. Let me complete it. Implementing serializable interface makes object of this entity class as a serializable. Once object is serializable, object data we can send over the network. Object is serializable. Object data we can write to the file. So sometimes we need to send this entity class object data over the network. So that's why on safe side, better to make it as what? Serializable object by implementing serializable interface. By implementing serializable interface. Are you getting my point there or not there? If you don't do also, no problem. But if you do, for future enhancement, it is very much ready. For future enhancement, in very much ready. Are you getting my point there? Okay, boss. Fine. Okay, let's see now. See, boss, Hibernate is nowhere related to JSON. JSON is purely Spring REST. JSON is purely related to Spring REST environment. Okay. Spring REST environment. Okay. I mean to say web services. So while talking about a Spring, while talking about what Hibernate, don't bring JSON into picture unnecessarily. Don't spoil your brain. JSON is very much specific to web services, especially RESTful web services, are bit used in Node.js, Express.js kind of what UI technologies. So don't think much on JSON while learning Hibernate, while learning what this one. Here you just worry about XML properties, XML files and properties file. Mainly XML file, after that properties file. So here no JSON, no JSON, no JSON. Forget about that. Okay. Listen here. You can take either same properties or different. Same so properties with the same name as column names are different one. No doubt in that. Okay. It's up to you. Class name and table name should match or not. It's up to you. If matching, fine. If not matching, also not a issue. If matching, fine. If not matching, also not a issue. Understanding my statement there. Fine, boss. Okay. But sir, what is recommendation? Matching is recommendation. so that you won't have any confusion. We don't have confusion. How we are working with the columns, we can work with the properties similarly. How we are working with the properties, we can feel that, oh, same name column names are there. Generally, people will take with matching names only. String e name. Private float e salary. Private string e address. These are called bean properties. I hope everyone studied what is Java bean by watching videos. Everyone revised what is Java bean. Please, I asked you to watch 1-2 videos yesterday. Watch it or not? Please don't neglect. Don't neglect. Then you have to write getter setter methods. Setters and getters. Okay, boss. Let's see. Public void set EID int EID. This dot EID is equal to EID. Setter methods are responsible to set data to bean property. Getter methods are responsible to read the data from bean property. Public int get EID. Here we have written EID. Here we have written EID. Okay, fine. So set EID and get EID. Are you getting my point there? For every, listen here, like this for all properties, you should write getter setter methods. For all properties, you should write getter. Yes, it's an ordinary Java class without any specialities. So you can also call it as a POSO class. No problem at all. You can also call it as a POSO class. So that is not an issue, boss. Sir, what's the use of this setter method? Setter methods are useful to set or modify the data to bean properties. What's the use of getter method? Getter methods are useful to read the data from bean properties. Why separate setter method for each property? Who knows? All the time I may not be ready with all properties data. I may have one property, two property values. Come on. So whatever properties I am having, I want to set the data. Whatever properties I want to have, I want to read the data. Understanding my point there? Fine. See, boss, these setter getter methods are also called as accessor methods. What methods? Accessor methods. So Java Bean is a Java class that is having what? Accessor method. So different people uses different terminologies, boss. Different people uses different terminologies. Got it or not there? Fine. See, if 10 tables are there, we will try 10 entity class. 20 tables are there, we will take 20 entity classes. And what is that? The when entity class is mapped with the DB table, okay, DB table columns type and count, and entity class properties type and count must be compatible. Must be compatible. Here number, here also number type, data type, int or long or something like this. Understanding my point there? Super. Here is what? Address varchar 2. So here also I have taken what? String type. String type. Understanding my point there? When we are mapping entity classes with DB tables. When you are mapping entity classes with what? DB tables. Okay. DB tables. There must be compatibility between entity classes, properties, count and type. with DB tables, columns, type, and count. There must be compatibility between entity classes, properties, count, and type with DB table, columns, type, and count when we are mapping. Yes, boss. I think you got some better knowledge in DB tables here, but it will be taken on what basis? One per table basis. One per table basis. Got it? I have a project having one database, 10 tables. Then what should I do? One configuration file, 10 tables, not 10 entity classes. 10 entity classes. Got it? So then how many mapping files are? How many mapping files are? 10 mapping files on one per table basis. Simply on what basis? One per table basis. Okay, boss. Now let's take Hibernate mapping file. What's the next one? Hibernate mapping file. Focus. Listen, boss. Which database it has to talk is decided by this configuration file. That's cool. But in that database, which table is decided by mapping file? Why, sir? Taking entity class, linking with table, taking entity class properties and linking with table columns is done through mapping file. For example, in the persistence logic, I created employee class object, asked Hibernate to insert the record. Asked Hibernate to insert the record. Everyone focus and concentrate. Then what happens? It go to mapping file, gets the class name of the object. Okay. That class is mapped with the table. What table? Employee table. Super. Right. Then it goes to configuration file. Okay. Observe what is the target database, Oracle. So first, that's why it will try to generate insert query with respect to Oracle to insert the record into the employee table. Which data? By collecting entity class object data. I repeat, listen carefully. I created employee class object filled up with data and I asked Hibernate to insert the record. That's it. I created object, filled up the data and asked Hibernate to insert the record. No query, no JDBC code. I just created object, filled up with the data and asked Hibernate to insert the record. Okay, then how Hibernate knows? Hibernate goes to mapping file, collects, gets the class of the current object, employee class object, class is employee. In the mapping file, it observes this is mapped with which table? Employee table. Then go to configuration file. It is pointing to which database? Oracle. Then it internally generates insert SQL query for employee table. Okay, to send and execute in what? Oracle database. Or that query should have a data. Na. Already my employee object is filled up with data. That object data will be made as what? Insert query input values. Insert query input values. That's why they will go and store into database as a record. They will go and store in the database as a record. Everyone convinced with me or not there? So that means when Hibernate asks which database, configuration file gives the answer. Which table, mapping file gives the answer. Which columns, mapping file will give the answer. Come on. Got the clarity or not there? Super. One more time, listen. I created employee class object, filled up with the data and asked Hibernate to save the object. Nothing but insert the record. Then Hibernate asked which database programmer? Configuration file will tell Oracle. Which table? In the mapping file, information will be there. Right now, what object? Employee object. What is the class name of employee object? Employee. Okay, that employee mapped with which table? That employee mapped with which table? Employee table. Okay, these properties are mapped with which column? Employee table column. Okay, database is Oracle, table is employee. Okay, properties are mapped with what? Column. By keeping all these things in mind, dialect is internally used that will happily generate insert SQL query, having object data as input values in that query, having object data as input values in the query, and that will happily insert the record. That will happily insert the record. By giving object to Hibernate framework and you ask for persistence operation, then Hibernate will ask reverse question. Which database configuration file? Which table? Which columns mapping file? Based on, by using all this information, dialect generates the SQL query. That query goes and executes in database software, and your persistence operation is completed. Your persistence operation is completed. Once that, then the response comes back. That's a different story. I think you are enjoying. Let me take one real life example. Let me take one real life example. See, boss, what you are doing at the end, you are creating object, filling up the data and giving to Hibernate, and everything else it is gathered dynamically and internally. Which database? Configuration file. Which table? From mapping file. Which columns? From mapping file. And dialect will get all this info always, and the dialect generates the query, and dialect what generated query goes to database software, completes the persistence operation. So all these are internal, except what? Creating object and giving object only your responsibility. Remaining everything is done internally only. That's why Gavin King is great, and Gavin King is great, and Hibernate is great. Completely abstraction you are enjoying or not? Great abstraction you are enjoying or not? Life is simplified or not? If it is JDBC code, you only should write the query, you only should put the data into the query, right? Life has been very much simplified here or not? Very much simplified here or not there? Let me take one real life example. Real life example. Fully automated washing machine is there. I pressed button. I pressed button. Now, mission only questions. Mission only questions. Okay, where is water? Okay, one unit will be there supplying water. Where is washing powder? One more unit will be there in the machine supplying washing powder. Okay, where are the clothes? One container is there where we have kept clothes. Okay, now machine. Okay, this machine automatically rotates the spindle. Washing machine automatically rotates the spindle for certain amount of time. Okay, by collecting what? Water from one source. There's a detergent from one source, clothes from one source, and washing will be done. Washing will be done. You think that you pressed a button only. Are you understanding my point there? What if more than tables are with internal joins are there? That time also you have to give more instruction in the mapping file. It all about instructions in the mapping file. Are you understanding my point? Okay. Rajashree, what is the difference between Hibernate DAO and Spring DAO? Spring DAO is the module name that provides abstraction on plain JDBC, but still allows us to write JDBC style persistence logic. Still allows us to write SQL queries based persistence logic. That persistence logic is still database software dependent because still SQL queries are involved. In Hibernate DAO, no SQL queries. Okay, no SQL queries, no SQL queries, purely object-based persistence logic. That's why it is what? Data asked, I am answering. Remaining guys, don't think much. I'm answering only to this Rajasi. What is the difference between Spring DAO and Hibernate DAO? Listen carefully. Spring DAO is a module, provides abstraction on Hibernate. Okay, allows us to develop JDBC style SQL queries based persistence logic in a simplified manner. But still, persistence logic is SQL queries based. That's why it is persistence logic is database software dependent. Dependent. Hibernate DAO, that means DAO class having Hibernate persistence logic. Purely object based persistence logic. OR mapping persistence logic. It is database software independent persistence logic. Are you getting my point? So that's why better not to compare Hibernate DAO and Spring DAO. I hope you got your answer, Mr. Rajsi. Still not getting you should have more technical knowledge to understand this. Till that time, just don't worry about it. Which code uses automated washing machine? Our Hibernate code, worst fellow. Okay. It's an example. It's an example. Spring JDBC, Spring DAO, both are one and the same. Sir, Spring DAO does not provide abstraction on Hibernate. Spring ORM is there providing abstraction on Hibernate. Yes. Yes. Okay, let's come to mapping file. I'll take your questions at the end. One, two irrelevant questions are there. I'm ignoring them. Keep it at the end. Keep it at the end. Any file name .xml. Any file name .xml can be taken as Spring Bean configuration file. Any file name .xml can be taken as Spring Bean configuration file. Sorry, Hibernate Sorry, I gone to my Spring all of a sudden. Hibernate mapping file. But every file, every mapping file name must be specified in a configuration file name. In Hibernate configuration file using mapping tag. Using mapping tag. Must be specified in Hibernate configuration file using mapping tag. Simply using mapping tag. Are you getting my point there or not there? Simply using what tag here? Mapping tag. Okay, after that, what next? This file contains OR mapping, different OR mapping configurations. Different OR mapping configurations. Okay, like mapping entity classes with DB tables and mapping properties of entity classes with the columns of DB tables. With the columns of DB tables. DB tables. Okay. The recommended notation of this file name is file name dot hbm dot xml. file name dot hbm dot xml. Sir, HTML is mandatory, optional. Why are you taking, sir? Array, as I said, na, for self-explanation. Because we have XML file for configuration, we have XML file for mapping. To tell that this is the XML file for mapping, this is not XML file for configuration. So in configuration file, we will take CFZ word. In mapping file name, we will try to use HBM word. In mapping file name, we will try to use HBM word. Understanding my statement there or not there? Come on, guys, come on. Notation of the file name. Notation of the file name. File name dot cfz dot xml. So for easy differentiation, boss, for easy Sir, in web.xml we have not seen. Array, there is overall only one XML file. That's why web.xml. Come on. Can't we give both CFZ and mapping in single file? Not possible. Hibernate is not expecting like that. Okay. Your choice here is a recommended notation. Recommended. Mr. Subham Singh, do you know the meaning of... Okay, Sheikh Aziz, do you know the meaning of recommendation? You follow, otherwise leave it. This is what industry generally follows. Okay, you want to give some other word, you don't want to use this word, your karma. But it's a recommended notation. Fine. Okay, boss. It should be easy for you in future. It should be easy for you. It's not default. It's a recommended only. No default name here. No default name here. There is no default name for file name for Hibernate mapping file. There is no default file name for Hibernate mapping file. Every file name must be... So every file name must be specified in configuration. Must be specified in configuration file. In configuration file. Configuration file. We generally take these mapping files on one per DB table basis. We generally take these mapping files on 1 per DB table basis. 1 per database table basis. Are you getting my point there or not? Come on, generally take these mapping files on 1 per DB table basis. Right. We can do the following OR mappings in the mapping file. Sir, if you give configuration file and mapping file in a single file, in real-time projects, we can do in single project 100 projects will be there. 100 tables will be there. Sometimes 200 tables also. That means you are expecting configuration file info and 200 tables related mapping info in one XML file. Is it really recommended? Is it really recommended? I'm answering this guy, Subham Singh. Don't think at Amirpet level. classes level, think in company level. Company project will have hundreds of tables related mapping information. Come on, hundreds of tables related mapping information and configuration anyhow that is there. Which database, driver detail, dialect, all those details, that is also there. That is also there. Come on, all these things placing in one XML file. Is it going to work out? Very lengthy. Debugging is very complex. So many headaches are there. Are you getting my point? So that's the reason they have given separate configuration file, separate mapping file. Separate configuration file, separate mapping. Moreover, it is knowing mapping information through configuration file. It is designed like that. Hibernate is designed how much to get the mapping information through configuration file. So that means it is not expecting mapping information directly in the configuration file itself. So it is expecting mapping file names inside the configuration file. So that's the reason you have to take separate XML file for configuration, separate XML file for mapping information. Mapping means linking. Mapping means linking. Okay, boss. Sir, why we write file name .hbm.xml? Pritish Nayak, you are not listening, Ra Babu. Please don't sit in the classroom with absent mind. Few minutes back only I have explained. Okay. In the file name, CFC indicates configuration. HBM indicates mapping. Hibernate mapping. HBM means hibernate mapping. So that we can differentiate. We can differentiate. Come on. We can differentiate. We can differentiate. This is configuration file. This is what? Mapping file based on the extra extensions. Because in one project, so many XML. By seeing the files itself, we should extend. We should differentiate them or not. I think this is the third time I am talking this point. Please focus. Keep your head in the classroom. Don't think parallelly. First, listen completely. Listen completely. I hope you got your answer, Mr. Pritish. Mr. Pritish, you got your answer, it seems. Okay. To tell that it is not configuration, it is mapping. To tell that it is not mapping, it is a configuration. When someone sees the code, when we are looking at, we should be in a position to tell that this is so and so XML, this is so and so XML. For extra information through file name. And listen carefully. Configuration file one per database, not for one per table, not for one per table, one per database. Entity class one per table. Mapping file one per table. People unnecessarily confusing. Upasana madam is asking. I thought she is a matured girl, but she asked one dumb question. What is that? Sir, can both configuration and HBM one per table basis or no? Configuration file is for connectivity. Driver details, all these are for connectivity. It is one per database. Entity classes one per table. Mapping file one per table. Got it? Okay, I will highlight this one later. I will highlight this point later. It is too early to talk that. Satish Bhushan Jha, again you are going wrong. Configuration is one per database are told. If you want 10 database table, then take 10 mapping files, not the configuration files. You have to take 10 mapping files. Okay, boss. I will give one sample mapping file now. Sample mapping file. Employee.hbm.xml. It's a sample only. I'm not writing complete. I'm just giving basic idea. Sample mapping file. I'm not giving complete one. Okay. Right. Yes. Here, what is this? Class. Some other information also will be there. I'm just giving. That's why in means not complete file. In means not complete file. Are you getting my point? Yes. In means not complete file. Partial code only I am giving. Class name is equal to com dot package dot, because classes will be having package names. Table is equal to employee. Generally we write table names, column names in uppercase, class names in mixed case. Yes or no? Right. After that, property name is equal to e name, column is equal to e name. Property name is equal to e name, column is equal to e name. Okay. Property name is equal to e salary, column is equal to e salary. Got it? Like this we will write the information. Like this we will write the information class. But when it comes to primary key column and relevant property, we configure by using id. I will talk more on id in the coming classes. Id name is equal to eid, column is equal to eid. Only primary key column configurations will happen through id. I will talk much on id later. Listen here. What is war mapping? The process of mapping classes with table, class with table, properties with columns, and making objects of their classes representing DB table rows having synchronization is called OR mapping. But first of part is happening in the mapping file are not there. So one more table, one more entity class. You may write another class tag in the same thing, or better recommended to take separate mapping file. So our third table and third table is there. Third table and third entity class. My recommendation is take one more mapping file. There you map class with table, properties with columns, properties with columns, properties with columns. Are you getting my point there or not? Are you understanding my point there or not? Come on, my dears. Guys, getting my point? Okay. At least you got idea. Sir, for the timing, you remember from primary key column, you have to use ID. Why ID? I will talk later. So for PK column properties, for PK column related property, primary key column related property, fine. Here for other columns, for other columns related property. People are not listening, Ra Babu. People are not listening, and in the middle they are asking me to repeat same thing again. Put your focus. All these are first time you are learning. For other columns related properties configuration. Okay, again I'm saying, taking class name, table name, same, your choice. You may take, you may not take. Taking column names and property names, same, your choice. You may take, you may not take. Okay, you may take, you may not take. At the time of explanation, people are not listening. When I write something, they are asking, what is that, sir? Not going to work out, boss. Not going to work out. You should have a pure attention in the classroom. Okay. Yes. Okay, now listen. I'm not giving complete one. It's a partial file, partial code only. In the configuration also, what I have given is partial code only. Because I just want to tell what is what. I just want to give the feeling what is what. Come on, guys. Come on. I think you got basic idea, na? Right. Now, final conclusion is, okay. Final conclusion is entity classes. Entity classes. One per DB table. One per DB table basis. Mapping files. One per DB table basis. DB table basis. Configuration file. Yes, HB configuration file, HB mapping files. Configuration file. One per database software basis. One per database software basis. Everyone got the clarity there or not there? Okay. Let's take some naming conventions. Naming conventions. Naming conventions. So Oracle database software is having two tables. One is employee table, other one is student table. Then what should I do? Right, means that means I am dealing with what? Single database software. So that's why HB configuration file name. See, when single file name, better to take hibernate.cfz.xml. Hibernate.cfz.xml. Single database software, na? That's why. Next one, entity class names. Classes name. One is employee, other one is student. Mapping file names. Mapping file names. Tell me. Employee.hbm.xml and student.hbm.xml. Student.hbm.xml. I hope you got a clarity there or not there. Yes, try to take entity class names only should reflect in the mapping file names. Entity class names only should reflect in the mapping file names. Are you getting my point there or not there? Come on, my dears. Here I am talking about it's purely naming conventions. Completely, solidly naming conventions. What do you say? Clear? Understanding my statement, full clarity. Now at the end you got clarity. Complete clarity has come or not? Fine. Now listen. I created employee class object like this. employee emp is equal to new employee of emp dot set eid 1001 emp dot set e name Raja. Come on, Mr. User. One per database means that is only Nara Babu. If there are three databases, you have to take three configuration files. That time, what are the names? Okay, Hibernate -vara.cfz.xml, Hibernate -mysql cfz.xml, Hibernate some other database.cfz.xml. Got it? Fine. Right. Okay. First, concentrate on this. I will go for emp.set e address Hyderabad. Okay. emp.set e salary 9,000. Okay. I created this object. Okay. In Hibernate, there is an object called session, boss. There is an object called session. And to tell to Hibernate framework, you have to save the object. Nothing but insert record. This method, what is session, I will talk in a moment. Don't worry. What is session, I will get to know later. How we got statement object in JDBC to send and execute the queries. Come on. Similarly, we have one thing called what? Session object. We have one session object to give persistence instructions. Save of EMP gives save object persistence operation. Save object persistence instruction to Hibernate. Hibernate framework. Hibernate framework. Are you getting my point there? This session object is nowhere related to servlet session object. It is Hibernate session object, separate one. It's a separate one. Okay, I'll introduce that one later. Session dot save emp. It will give save object persistence instruction to Hibernate framework. Nothing but okay. Inserting record. Nothing but inserting record. You don't believe, boss. You do these two things, your job is done in Hibernate. That much easy in Hibernate. Are you getting my point? Done. Maybe to create this session object, you have to spend some time. But think about the remaining process. No JDBC, no insert SQL query, no need to worry about which database, which table, which columns. No need of try catch also. Why? Because Hibernate exceptions are unchecked exceptions. Okay, now listen. Session dot save emp. What actually first happens? Session object is already having configuration file and mapping file information. So that uh, based on that, it is already having clarity which database. It is already having clarity which database. Because session object is already having mapping file and configuration file information. That's why it is already having clarity which database. Cool. Now, takes this object, get the class name. Okay, session object is also having mapping file information. In the mapping file, what is this? Employee class is mapped with employee table. So in that class, what is that? How many columns are there? How many properties are there? 4 or 5 are there. Mapped with what? 4 or 5 columns. So now dialect comes into picture. Okay, generate insert SQL query for employee table. Having object data as the query parameter values. Object data as the query parameter values. So that query goes to database software and executes in database software. So that what happened? Record is inserted. Nothing but object data is inserted. Nothing but object data is inserted. But are we doing this entire work, or this save method is taking care of all these activities? Come on, boss. Are you doing this entire activity, or save method is taking care of all these activities? So definitely save method is taking care of all these activities. Sir, first concentrate on what I am explaining. Some people ask, sir, what happens if I call save method second time? Second time, if you try to call, you will get error. Why? 1001 is there, na? 1001 is having there in the primary key column already. So you will get exception. Fine. Okay, save is a predefined method that is there in session. So that's the reason we are invoking. I will talk how to create session object that later. I will talk. My interest is not on session object now. I want to show how simply we are able to do persistence operations. Hibernate session object is nowhere related to servlet session object. Hibernate session object is nowhere related to servlet session object. Servlet session object nowhere related to servlet session object. Hibernate session object is connection plus plus. What do you mean by connection plus plus? Connection plus plus. Connection plus plus. That means connection object gathered connection object plus, okay, XML files information. Connection object plus XML files information. Are you understanding my point there? Session object is connection plus plus. A connection object plus XML file information. Okay, now you observe, by keeping this point in mind, session object is already having connection. So it is having clarity what is the target database. Are you understanding my point there? Fine. And it is also having both XML file information. Cool. So save EMP. Okay. Takes the EMP, gets the class name of EMP object, employee. Okay, go to mapping file information. So that checks employee class is mapped with which table? Employee table. Properties are mapped with which column? Respective columns. Okay, already database is decided, because of that only connection is there. So now dialect comes into picture. Come on. So that dialect, according to underlying database software represented by connection object, nothing but Aracle, it generate, insert SQL queries, prepares and generates. And to that query, object data is gathered and set to query parameters, and that query goes to database software and executes in database software. All these are internally happened. For all these things, Hibernate internal uses JDBC code. That's why without JDBC, there is no Hibernate. Without JDBC, there is no Hibernate. Guys, are you getting clarity? Are you getting clarity or not? How to create that session object, I will talk later. Don't worry. I just want to show how simply we can develop persistence activity. That's it. I'm not involving SQL query. Tomorrow I change it to MySQL. Tell me, this object creation, this session.save will change? No. After a few days, I change it to PostgreSQL. This object creation session.save will change? No. But internally generated SQL query, insert SQL query may change database to database. Yes. but I have to do modification in one place. What is that place? Mapping file, entity class, configuration file. Where I should do modification? Where I should do modification? Configuration file, mapping file, okay, or entity class, configuration file, because I have to use different driver, different username, different password. Accordingly, different dialect also should be changed. No problem. Nowadays, dialect will be picked up automatically. If you give JDBC driver details, the dialect will be picked up automatically. Enjoyed or not? Everyone thoroughly enjoyed this point or not there? Come on, come on. Everything is easy, boss. Everything is easy if you put your brain. Yes, can we see equivalent JDBC code? Yes, some extent. Up to some extent, we can see equivalent JDBC code. Okay, now I'll tell. Headache number one. Headache number one. I don't know XML. How can I write it? Don't worry. Initial 1-2 days, it looks a bit new. After that, you will habituate. Something like web.xml initial days. Very, very new. Very, very new. Okay, but now you are doing everything every day. Sir, I don't know JDBC. Can I learn? Okay, if you learn JDBC, you can analyze better. Without JDBC, you can still complete application. Anyhow, you are taking JDBC Hibernate classes parallelly, not a issue. You can manage. You can manage and you can cope up. Happily, you can cope up. Servlet XML, Hibernate XML same. If both are same, why they are called? Are here tags are different, their tags are different. Both are XML, but here different tags, there different tags. Shruti Sampad Sahu, how innocently you are asking Ra Babu. If both are same, why these are called two different technologies or framework, Ra worst fellow. So their tags are different, here tags are different. Observe. Here I am using different tag names and attribute. There I am using different tag name and attribute. So there we have a different XSD rule. Here also different XSD rules. So technology is same. Okay, technology is same. Are you understanding my point? In how many days JDBC and Hibernate course will be completed? Okay. How many ways? So JDBC need 35 days. Hibernate needs 75 to 80 days. Nano tag different, but like XML is similar. That XML, this XML is similar. Fine. Okay, I think you got a basic idea. Okay, always remember one-line statements. One-line statements. Okay. What is there in configuration file? This contains information that is required for Hibernate to locate and establish connection with Hibernate. That is there to locate and establish connection with Hibernate. Where to connect? Configuration file. Which table to connect? Mapping file. Which columns to utilize? Mapping file. Using which class objects that should be happen? Entity class objects. Entity class objects. So simple theory in the DAO class or client application, when I use entity class object to perform persistence operation, based on class name of entity object, it comes to mapping file, gets the table name. Okay, gets the table name. Similarly, based on properties of object, it will get the columns. It will get the columns of the table because properties are mapped with columns. Now, from configuration file, it will decide destination database. Now, dialect comes into picture, generates dynamic SQL query according to given persistence instruction. Okay, save operation, insert query. Update operation, update query. Delete operation, delete query. Select operation, select query will be generated according to underlying database software. Objects data will be set as query parameter values. So that query goes to database software, executes in database software, and final results comes back to application. So if someone asks you, how does Hibernate knows where to connect configuration file, which table to connect mapping file, which columns to connect mapping file, using which objects to connect entity class objects, using which objects to connect simply through what entity class objects. Are you getting my point there? If I speak for 100 times also, the basic points are same, boss. Everyone got it? With this, introduction to Hibernate programming part 1 is over. What is this? Part 1 over. Sir, morning 7 o'clock spring, better not to come because already 4-5 applications are over. My simple suggestion is wait for few days. Okay? Part 2 is there. Part 2 is there. More improvisations are there on it. Only level 1 I discussed. Level 1 I discussed. Okay. Whatever I talked so far, this is what? Part 1. So part 2, some more improvisation, some more analyzation we have to do. Okay. Some more analyzation we have to do. Some more angles are there. Then we will straight away go for the coding. Actually, today I didn't highlight much about ID tag. Did I highlight ID tag? I didn't highlight ID tag. Okay. Tomorrow I will spend the time for ID tag. Okay. So then we will move to what? Our first application development. How do I get so much analyzation? Because I don't mug up the code. I will try to understand the code. I will try to feel what it is doing internally. I will try to question why they have given this option. Yeah, it's recommended to take wrapper types rather simple type. But for few days, we'll work with a simple type. Then we will go for wrapper types. Okay, na? Right. No, there are no containers in Hibernate. Framework itself will directly do it. Fine. Or in future, we will learn 3 caches. First level cache, second level cache, query cache. I read source code a lot. I always remember 4 W's. What the 4 W's while learning anything? What is that? Why is that? When to use? Where to use? If we get answer for these 4 questions, okay? If we get answer for these 4 questions or any topic, on any topic, no one can stop your growth. But generally, we try to go for what only. We ignore remaining 3 W's. Everyone in the industry do mistake, only one mistake. What they will learn, why, when, where, they always neglect. So that's why their knowledge is always off knowledge. But if you put focus on 4 W's, what is that? Why is that? When to use? Where to use? If we can analyze like this, every subject becomes easy. It may take bit of time too, but once you study in the mind, it will be there forever. How to get good command on Java? Spend every day, command will come automatically. In Spring and Hibernate, XML is used for loose coupling. For both same XML parser for no. Spring uses its own XML parsers and Hibernate uses its own XML parser. Both are 2 different parsers. Okay. Now from my side, session is over. If any queries are there from your side, now I will take. Okay. Sir, today favorite cricketer Saurav Ganguly birthday. Fine. Good. Okay. Next. In this course, you will create database connectivity using J&A also. Yes. We are going to work with server managed connection pool. In that one, J&A will come. When new batch of Spring 6 p.m. will start, 1.5 month. When I will start design pattern course, takes 2 months time. It takes 2 months because before Hibernate only I started design pattern. It takes time. Why people are crazy about design pattern, Ra Babu? Sir, mid-level company, which kind of task will be given? That depends upon the project. So generally they will give task of, okay, presentation tire. Okay, if already done, they will give persistence tire work. Article 19C not required. Just keep 11G ready. That is enough. Web services, okay, talk with management. Right now, I don't have any plan. I didn't get any plan. I also put a requirement, but no plan has come. Please inform when new spring batch starts. I will I will announce in the regular classes when batch starts. Okay, evening 6 p.m. around 1.5 month it will be started. Web service means HTML only, na? No. It's a distributed technology. Don't mix up. Okay. Spring Data, Spring Cloud, part of Spring SAR. Spring Data is part of our course. Spring Cloud is part of microservice learning. Spring Cloud is part of microservice learning. There is another course called Spring Microservices. While learning Spring Microservices, you will get Spring Cloud. Right. Thank you. Have a nice time. We'll meet tomorrow. Don't dare to miss the classes until I say first application is completed. Understanding my point there. Spring AOP evening going on, but in the morning batch it takes time. After core module JDBC, then it will come. Sir, I have Spring old PDF having up to Spring ORM. Is it okay? Fine, manageable. What percentage of Spring is necessary to attend interview? Okay, if you are a fresher, once you complete core module, go and give interview. If you are experienced, until you complete MVC, don't go for interview. Until you complete Spring MVC, don't go to interview. Our full Java package, Spring Cloud is there or not there? I don't know. Spring is part of your package, but Spring microservices is not part of your package. Come on, boss. You paid 4,000, 5,000 and expecting everything in that. Huh? Come on. Show some, okay. Show some courtesy and Naresh IT, yaar, Babu. Sir, my Naukri profile 95%. Get any calls? Did not get any calls. Try to update every day. You will get it. Yes, I can teach Spring microservices also, but Naresh IT is multi-faculty team here, multi-faculty institute. When they assign batch, I will teach. Sir, Naresh IT have so much money. We don't have so much money here. Okay, right now we have to maintain building rents and we have to pay for online infrastructure. It's becoming very horrible to run the business every day. Okay, fine. Should I write Spring in resume? If not, I have complete knowledge for freshers. Okay, Spring core module is enough here. Once you complete core module by writing Spring core, you can go for interview as a fresher. Yesterday has call. They asked me to give money for job. Don't entertain. If you have a knowledge, job will come automatically. So what is your age and are you in IITN? Okay, do one thing, mail me. I will answer this kind of personal questions, worst fellow. Fine. You want my age? What you will do with that? Please prefix batch name while uploading file. Anyhow, I am writing Hibernate and I am writing date and month. You can easily recognize. How can we everyday profile? Only once we can do. That means every day you modify the profile, one or other thing. You are try to improve technology weightage in the resume. When you will change Hibernate code, maybe in 1-2 days it will be changed. When you are uploading notes every day afternoon, morning batch content afternoon, evening batch content at 8 o'clock. Fresher Hibernate is optional, but if you learn, it is added advantage. Thank you. We'll meet tomorrow. Don't miss classes until I say first application is completed. 7 a.m. batch, how many days required to complete core module? Another 30 days are required to complete core module in 7 a.m. batch. Core module and MVC modules are quite big modules. Thank you. Have a nice time.